Alrighty, I am live, and here we are underway once again. Take a drink quick. And going to do a little bushing work on my clock tonight. And it can be kind of fiddly, but it's something that needs to be done. And the bushings going out and getting worn is one of the big reasons why a clock will stop. 9 times out of 10, it just needs to be cleaned good. But over time, the bushings will wear and it'll cause more drag on the entire system, and the spring just won't have enough power to drive the clock. So I'm going to show you how to replace bushings in this. This one is a little bit different of a clock than most of them are. It has steel plates with bushings pressed into the steel plates. Most clocks have brass plates where they simply drill the holes directly in the brass plates. So there's a bit of extra fiddling and steps with this to make it work out right. But it also saves one step, and that's getting your hole as you remount the hole to put the bushing in. You have to be careful to keep that on its original center. I'm not going to show you how that works tonight. I'll need a little bit of a visual aid for that so I can draw some pictures and make it easy to see. But we'll do that eventually. But for now, I'm just going to show you how I put some new bushings in the clock that I got here, show you the tools that you need for that. And I'm also going to show you a couple of cool pans that I got over the last 3 weeks while I've been gone. Now, next week, I have to work overtime. We're shorthanded at work, so we're putting in quite a bit more overtime. And I have to work next Tuesday during the day and then turn around and go back in for a third shift. So I'll only have about 3 hours to sleep in between shifts. So I'm not going to be able to do the show next Tuesday. And there'll be another Tuesday coming up soon. I'm not exactly sure when, probably within the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. They'll have to skip. But here we are tonight. So we'll make the most of what we got going on right now. Let me get myself repositioned. I'm going to pour myself a drink because I deserve a drink. I think I'll have me a little bit of brandy. I got some E&J brandy. Not bad. Not a big brandy drinker, but every once in a while, some brandy's pretty good. So I'll pour myself a little glass and take a sip. Then I'll show you the stuff we got here. Let me say hi to the folks who are here already. Corey Clark is here. Got Fuzz. He's here. Cynthia, nice to see you. JIR Finishes. Dan, he's good. RT Scott. Raymond's here. Nice to see you, Raymond. Dan, Billy Lee, good to see you. Handsome Stone, he's here. Handsome feller that he is. And I think that's about it so far. Folks that have commented. Now, the pans that I got. I set my mouse down here. I got this little guy. I was intrigued by it. There's no markings on it. Looks a little rough. Looks kind of like a recast. This little circle on the bottom, that's the gate mark on it. And I'm trying to think of what it's actually called rather than a gate mark, but there's a name for that particular kind of round mark. I think this is a recast of something. It isn't marked. It's a little bit rough. And but that is a number 2 sized skillet, even though it doesn't say 2 on it anywhere. Because here's number 3. That's a unmarked favorite. A little bit of a ghost mark on that. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of a ghost mark on that. And as you can see, that one's about a number 2 size compared to a number 3. And that was cheap, and I figured, well, why not? It's kind of an intriguing little pan. And like I say, I'm pretty sure that's a recast of something. I don't know what exactly. I haven't seen quite that. It's got a reinforced, kind of looks like a BSR-ish handle. It's a little more reinforced around there. Could be a recast of a number 2 BSR, but I don't know if BSR made a number 2. And the top of the handle is certainly different than you would expect on a Birmingham stove and range. So, like I say, I'm intrigued by it, but don't know quite what to make of it. Let me set these guys aside. You were thinking of BSR? Yeah, the bottom of the handle looks like it, but the top doesn't. So I'm not quite sure what to make of it. Let me get back here to the comments. So I'm not quite sure what to make of it, but I think it's a recast of something. Because you don't generally see skillets that have that round gate on them. You know, the long, skinny gate mark pans, you're used to seeing those. Some of the really old ones and some kettles sometimes have that circular gate, but usually not on a skillet. So, like I say, I don't know quite what to think. This one here, as you know, a few weeks ago, I sent a number 9 Vollrath out into the world, and Cynthia's got that, and she's cooking away with it. Found a lid for it, she did, which is handy. But I sent a number 9 Vollrath out into the world, and I had a number 4 come back to me. I paid $50 for that. It's a nice marked Vollrath number 4. Got to clean it up yet. And you see it's got a 4 on the handle there. I'm not sure how rare these are, but they got to be fairly uncommon because so far that's the only number 4 marked Vollrath I've ever come across. And for $50, I was thrilled to death to get. No, wait, I take that back. It was $69 and change is what I paid for it. But still, I think it's definitely worthwhile. And like I say, I don't know if they're really rare, but they got to be at least pretty uncommon because I've never come across one before or seen one for sale. So I got that and was tickled to death to get it. Melanie Matson's here. Dan would like to have one of those. Yeah, I would like to have one of those too, so I did get it. Alrighty, next I got a couple of pans. I paid $40 for the 2 of them. Nothing that I really desperately needed, but I just couldn't bring myself to pass them by, mostly because I'm a sucker for plating. That is a chrome-plated number 6 Griswold, large logo. Nice pan. It should clean up pretty good. Doesn't look like it's too badly rusted, you know, but it's got a fair bit of buildup. We'll see once it's cleaned off. See, there's definitely some wear on the bottom of the handle. But for the most part, it doesn't look too bad. This is a chrome-plated one. You see the handle is nice and shiny. And they usually polish the top of the handles and sometimes the sides, depending if it's a duochrome or not. We'll see what it looks like when I get her all cleaned up. But, yeah, it's a nice little number 6. Nice size. And chrome-plated Griswold. You don't see them terribly often. And the funny thing is, usually chrome-plated stuff, you know, chrome or nickel-plated, unless they're absolutely pristine, tends to be cheaper than the same size and just bare iron. You know, because people don't like it if the plating gets worn or scuffy. You know, they don't really want them that much anymore. So, pretty cool. Cynthia's rocking and rolling with her number 9. Yeah, like I said, I like number 9s. Yeah, I got quite a few of them. And this one here I got, that was a number 7 small logo Griswold. You can see just see the 7 on the handle. It was $40 for the 2 of them. I don't have a number 7 small Griswold, but I don't really try to put together a whole series of them either. But, you know, $20 a piece, definitely worthwhile. You know, some people like the number 7s. I'm pretty sure Billy Lee, she's fond of the number 7 size because it's just the right size for what she's doing. But 20 bucks for a small logo number 7, and not too bad of a deal. So I went ahead and jumped on it. RT Scott got a number 32 Griswold Abelskever pan. Yeah, they're heavy. I mean, you would think Griswold would have made a Abelskever a little bit lighter, but I mean they're a hell of a chunk of iron. The Griswold Abelskever pans are. Yeah, Billy Lee loves number 7s. Yeah, they're good size. I mean, I got some 7s that I use for things. But, I do kind of prefer the 9s. And that's what I've usually ended up with. Do you clean up chrome plated like regular cast iron? Pretty much you can use it in a lye bath. Lye doesn't hurt chrome or nickel plating. Or you can use oven cleaner. You don't want to run them through an electrolysis tank. But other than that, yeah, just your basic cleaning, clean them up pretty much like you would anything else. You don't really need to season them like you would, at least on the outside, like you would a regular pan. If there's no plating left on the cooking surface, you'll want to season that up like you would a regular iron skillet. But other than that, and that's kind of the main reason why they plated them, so they wouldn't rust. And it's a little bit more nonstick than a cast iron, but once it's seasoned up, it doesn't really make a difference as far as sticking. But the outside wouldn't rust, and that's why they did it. Now, turning to the clock. What I did is I put one new bushing in. Where's my tweezers here? Put one new bushing in, and I figured it was going to be kind of a challenge because these bushings are different than you normally see on most clocks. I mentioned before, usually they just drill the holes like these holes here, drill them directly into brass plates. But these are steel plates, and they press the bushings into the holes they drilled for them. And they're a little different. They're bigger on the outside than they are on the inside. They got a little flange on the outside as opposed to the inside. But the main problem is they're kind of an odd size on the outside of the bushing. I had to do a little bit of picking through my bushing box to see what I needed. But I had to double bush these. Basically, I had to drill out the hole, punch out the old bushing, drill out the hole a little bit, press a bushing in, ream that out, press another bushing into the bushing, so I had something that had the right size hole in the middle of the bushing. Between my light and my angle here, it's kind of tough to see. I had to use 2 bushings to get that to work out right. And I'll do the other end of the other plate for the other end of this wheel, and we'll get that put in there. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, move some stuff around here. First thing I'm going to do is drive this old bushing out. Actually, that's the second thing I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I'm actually changing the right bushing before I get too carried away. Let me see, that's backwards. There we go. So what I want to do, I got that bushing changed there, so I want to change this bushing on the other end. Now, like I said, these have kind of a flange on the outside edge. So I'm going to drive this from the inside out. And for that, I'm going to use that's my watchmaker staking tool. It's a little bit small for clock making. They do make a clockmaker's staking tool. And I'll set this up here and show you the rest of the set. There's quite a few videos on YouTube about using a watchmaker staking tool. And if you're curious about what all these little punches inside there are for, I mean, there's a whole bunch of them in there. Curious for what these are for, I recommend going to find one of those videos. But I got this cheap, and it's a pretty handy thing already so far. But it's a little bit small for most clockmaking work, but it works nice for this because I can, I've got the right punch that I can use to punch that bushing out. And it's this one here. Should have marked it. Probably would have made a little bit more sense. But get that in there and line it up. And I'll get it started anyway, because the hole on the outside of this is a little bit small, or the hole in the plate on the staking tool is a little bit smaller than it needs to be for what I'm doing. But I can get it started good. Oop, punched it right out. Cool. There, got the bushing all punched out. And let me show you that, if I can show you what it looks like. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. You can see there's a little bit of a ridge on the back side there. And that's where they drove it in. It's got kind of a flange to it. Now I have to double check just to make sure I got the right size. Got to take a micrometer, or caliper micrometer, and measure it where it goes into the plate just to make sure that this is the same size as the last one. Yeah, 3.99 millimeters. It's easier to do this in millimeters. You can do it in thousandths, but it's the same thing. Now I have to make a slightly smaller than 4 millimeter hole in this here. Actually, I got to go bigger than that because the bushings I have that'll fit that. Set this aside. The bushings I have that'll fit that, the one that's closest is 4.5. So I got to open that hole up to about 4.5 millimeters. And the problem is the ones that are big enough on the outside, the hole in the middle is too big for what I need on the inside. It's too big for the pinion. Let me pick that up, set these down without dumping them. Double check everything here, make sure I'm getting the right stuff. No, that one's too small. That's the one I need for the inside, actually. What I need is one of these. Oops. Come on, you. Yeah, that's the one I need to put in first. Then I need to ream that out and put a smaller bushing in there. Like I said, the problem with this is I've got the bushing, but it's way too big for the, I don't know if you can see that wobbling on there. The hole in the middle is way too big for the pivot on the wheel. So I have to deal with that. But first things first, that was 4.51 millimeters. So I want something that's a little bit smaller. This is a numbered, that doesn't show. It's a numbered size drill bit set. You know, they go from number 60 on down to number 1. Number 1's a bit less than a 1/4 inch, and they get smaller from there in a great many steps, which is nice and handy. And it has a little size chart there so I can find what size I'm going to need. Let me get back onto my comments here. Becky G's here. Good to see you, Becky. Cynthia, let's see. Jay Watterson, nice to see you. I got way behind on them. What are the hashtag numbers by your comments? I don't know. That's something YouTube has started doing, and I got no idea what the hell it's for. If the lack of plating drops the value and you have it replaced, will that decrease the value? I don't really know, how much it really costs to replate something. It's usually not terribly cheap because they clean it up and prep work and all of that. So replating it, I don't know if you'd really be able to tell if it had been, but if you had something, rare and unusual or something you really liked and wanted to replate it, you certainly could, but I don't know what that would really do to the value. William likes number 7s too. They're the right size for old guys like him. Let's see. Caught back up here. Thrilling dead air for a minute while I scroll through the comments. Say that, Becky. Love that thingy, right size for Jello shots. Yeah, it's a little jelly glass. And it works nice for liquor because it's a good bit more than a shot. Where's Kitty Cat? Where is she? She's around, which is nice because I don't need her right here because working on something new, she's got to come and explore. I got to get my magnifiers on. And now that was just under 4.5 millimeters. So I will need probably a number 17. So 13. Well, I'm going to end up with a number 17 anyway, so I'll pull that one out. But I want to do this in a couple of steps. I'm not going to use a drill. I'm going to use a drill bit, but not a drill. I'm going to do it by hand with my pin vise and a drill bit. So now I'm going to go, the higher the number, the smaller. So I'm going to go up to, let's see how number 20 fits that. Not bad. Go one more. See, I don't want to cut too much at one time out of the hole because it tends to grab the bit when you're doing it, especially by hand like this. Yeah, that was a little bit too small. So I'll go one up from that. Up to number 21. And we'll start there. This is a pin vise. It's got a little collet in the end, and you can put small things that you need to hold in it. Come on, get in there, you. Like drill bits and broaches. So what I'm going to do now is just take these magnifiers off. Just put it in the hole and start drilling it out. You want to try and stay nice and square with this. Get the drill bit all the way through. Kind of ream it around a little bit. Go up to the next size bigger. Put this guy away. Which is which one? This one. Go up to the next size bigger. Ream it out again. Now this is the same procedure you'd use for putting a bushing in a brass plate after you had made sure that your hole was correctly centered. Like I said, I'll have to draw some pictures of that to show you how that works, but I can't do it with this. Now this should be my last. Should be my last bit. Probably could have went one more step with that because I got a little bit of a burr on the inside and it doesn't want to cut through. I'll come back at it from the back side. There we go. And that should be the right size for my bushing. Wonder if there's a mini drill press. Yeah, there is. And I've got that Dremel drill press, which I could use with this, but I didn't feel like setting it up. And a lot of times it's, when I figure out the rest of the bushings I need to replace on this, I probably will, because it'll be faster to drill them out. We better start off smaller and graduate up in size. Yeah, that's what I did. So this is how to restore a clock. Yeah, this is putting the new bushings in because the bushings are worn out. Those are the holes in the plates that the pivots, which is the center of the axle that the gears run in, and a lot of these are worn out and need to be replaced. So that's what I'm doing. Now, I got to put my magnifiers back on. And where'd that go? There it is. A lot of times these bushings, it's actually easier to pick them up by sticking the tweezers inside of them and letting the spring hold them open. But that should be the size I was looking for. Yeah. What I'm going to do now is I will put these drill bits here away so I don't lose track of what order they are. Get in there. There we go. Now I'm going to chamfer the inside edge of that hole a little bit. I'm using this kind of pear-shaped Dremel tool bit for that. They do make chamfering tools. They do make reamers for cutting in bushings. There's a couple of different systems. For those, you would measure the inside. You'd measure the size of the pivot on the wheel. You'd measure what outside diameter you want to have. And then there's a chart where you use, bushing number 7 with a 1 millimeter inside diameter and a 2.5 millimeter outside diameter. And there's a specific cutter just for that. And you have a bushing machine that'll hold the cutter, and you just ream it out with the cutter, pop your bushing in, and there you have it. But they are expensive as hell. I mean, it's about $1,200, $1,500 for the machine. It's hand powered, but it's a machine. It's about $1,200, $1,500 for the machine, and the individual reamers are anywhere from $25 to $50 a piece. So I do it this way, and that gives me a pretty decent angle to chamfer the inside of that hole. So I just want to put that in there and ream that hole a little bit and just kind of knock that edge off on the inside. And get just a little bit of a bevel going on that the edge of that hole. Now, come over here onto my press, get that set up. I will set that bushing in there. Get everything lined up. And just kind of tap it a little bit to get it started square. I got to turn this. I'll probably bring this over a little closer so you can see. There we go. tap it a little bit to get it started straight, and then press it in. It feels like it's a little bit tight, but there it goes. And there's a new bushing. Kind of hard to see. I'll show you on the outside. There's the bushing pressed in. But like I said, the hole in that is way too big for the pivot on the wheel. So what I have to do is ream that bushing out, put another bushing inside the bushing that's the right size for my pivot. Oh, and something I didn't show you, it's kind of hard to see, but the bushings themselves have a little bit of a taper to them. Let me try and get the light. And they have a chamfer, a kind of countersunk on the outside. You want this to the outside of your plate. You want to press them from the inside out. And it's just flat and smooth on the back side. But that sits in there pretty good. Plate looks a little bit straight. Let me bend her a little bit. Now, I have to go ahead and put another bushing in there. This will be a little bit different because it's brass. I got to ream out the brass and tedious, exacting work. Once you get everything set up and figured out, it goes a good bit quicker. And when you're not doing it on camera, it does go a good bit quicker too. I'll go cross-eyed doing that. Yeah, you definitely got to have a pair of magnifying lenses like that because it's just a little bit too small. That's a good trick with the tweezers. Yeah, it took a while to figure that out because I have definitely launched more than a few bushings around trying to hold them from the outside. Sometimes you do have to grab them like that, but if you just stick the points of the tweezers on the inside, it definitely works a lot easier. Okay, let's see here. That's how the E&J helps. Yeah, it steadies my hands, keeps you good and steady once you get enough of it into you. Now, got to find the bushing that fits the inside, and I already know which one it is. But like I said, since I don't have a specific set where it tells me what size reamer and all that, you have to measure the outside so you get the right drill and broach. And the inside, I'll have to grab this. You want the hole on the inside to be a little bit too small because you're going to ream that to fit. Now with these, I think I actually want this end. Now with these, it just fits into the hole there. A little bit tight. It doesn't go all the way through. So that's the one that I want for the inside. The other end is a little bit different. It's a little bit bigger, but the sizes aren't necessarily the same on either end. So once we get this bushing in, it'll get reamed out with a broach. I'll show you those here when we get to that stage. It'll get reamed out with a broach so that it fits exactly where you need it to fit. Now, I have to measure the outside of this to get my right size bushing or my right size drill, because I have to take most of the new bushing I just put in out to fit this bushing on the inside. And I believe this is just, whoops. I believe this is going to give me problems. I think this was just a little bit under 3.5. Yeah, 3.48. So I want a drill bit that gets as close to about 3.46, maybe 3.47, somewhere around there. So I think that's like a number 17, if I remember right from last time. Let me look at my chart. 2.5, 3.7, 3.5, 3.3 is a little bit small, but 3.5 is too big, so I'm going to go with the next one smaller. That's a number 30, and that's what I'm going to end up with for my last cut on that. And we'll go down a couple of sizes smaller than that. We'll go down to, that's over here, go down a couple sizes smaller, down to, say, a number 30. That's a 35. We'll try a 35 to start with. And let's see. Where am I? There I am. Brass is a bit softer, but you still don't want to get a big burr on the inside, which will make things needlessly difficult. I think I'll go up to about a 36 on that. That should be enough that I'm not taking too much of a cut all at once. Yeah, that looks fairly good. Switch this over. And away we go. Wow, that worked good. Pushed a little too hard and it punched the bushing right out. Jesus. Well, I can push the bushing right back in. Yeah, there we go. That last little bit just had to give me trouble. Catch up on the comments again here. Big round bales mean less, bales of hay mean less to handle. Yeah, but you need a bobcat with a spear on it to move them around. But yeah, it's definitely a hell of a lot easier than mowing away hay up in the hay mow. So I'll grab another drill here and reamer out a little more. I'm going to have to put a different bushing in there because that one does not want to stay anymore. So, pushed in hard and pulls out easy. That's not what you want to have happen. Is that the one I want? Yes, it is. All right, so back to square one. Not always easy doing this, but we'll get that in there. Come on, you. Have that the right direction. There we go. I got to flip that over. Is that in there? Yeah. Anyway, back to the beginning. That one felt a little bit loose, but we'll see how it goes. Pushed in fairly easier than I would have wanted it to, so it's kind of hard to say how perfectly accurate the outside diameter of these bushings are. These are just cheap bushings, really. And I'll go smaller size to start with. But when I press the bushing into the bushing, that'll help to expand it some as well. So I should be okay, because you don't want your bushings falling out. Kind of defeats the purpose of putting them in. And typically you only have to put one in. You don't have to monkey around double bushing it like this. Get this out. Next one bigger. And then the next one bigger, and we're back to where I started. One more, and we should be up to where we need to be. This is going to give me fits, I can see right now. Because that wants to really push that bushing out. Let me see if I can punch that a little bit with the stake just to expand it. Get him on this side. That should hold in a little better. Hopefully. Like I said, when I go to put the next bushing in, that should expand it a little bit. But this one's really going to give me fits. Probably got my hole a little bit too big. So I'm going to call that good for right now. And I'll have to deal with that later. But I'll show you the next step here, more or less, and show you what you should end up with. After you get both bushings into your plate, what you need then is to broach the hole. This is a broach. It's a cutting tool. It's got 5 sides to it. There's holding it in the pin vise. It's got 5 sides to it, and you simply put it into the bushing and you turn it, and that'll gently ream that hole out. Once you got that to the size that you need it to be, you put your You get it so where it fits your pinion, and you want to have it so that it's got just a little bit of wobble to it. And that means it's plenty loose enough in there. But I'm going to stop right here for tonight because I got to figure out what to do with that bushing. The hole must have got a little bit big on me. It doesn't want to quite hold that bushing. So I'm probably going to have to see if I can close the hole up a little bit, stake it shut maybe, or find a bushing that's a little bit tighter in there. But we're getting up to 45 minutes anyway, so it's kind of a good spot to back away. And things never go to plan, but that's how things work when you're trying to rebuild something. Let me get over here and I can get caught up on the comments. And be sure to close this up because I don't want a million bushings on my floor. All right. Let me put my regular glasses back on. Yeah, I'll have to figure something out for that hole. Get that. I can make the hole a little smaller with something. It's kind of hard with the steel because that's a lot harder than brass. Or I might have to go one size bushing bigger. I do have some bigger bushings and figure out what to do from there. But that's kind of the problem when you are doing like this. You don't have the actual reamers for it where you can just, it's already pre-sized, and the cutting tool makes a hole that's the exact size you need for the bushing that you're going to put in. And of course, the one I do on air is the one that's going to give me the most problems. But over the next week or so, I'll get get everything else cleaned up, get all the new bushings in, and probably start doing some of the fine tuning and putting together sort of things. That'll be a little bit less tedious than watching me making holes here, trying to get this damn thing to fit. You're eating a sandwich and your Pomeranian stole it. There's the cat. You can just see her sneaking under the table. Let's see here. Dog's in her kennel now. Yeah, I should get a kennel for this cat because I'll let her say hi to you. There. Say hi to everybody. Put that back there. And I'm going to put you down on the floor because I don't need you knocking things off of the table. I know the wildfire and the smoke in Canada has made it hard for farmers. Yeah, we've gotten quite a bit of the smoke down here in Wisconsin from Canada, but many wildfires you've had the last few years, you wouldn't think there'd be anything left to burn up there in Canada. But yeah, we had one day. I mean, it was like fog. It was really, really dense smoke down here. Newer balers, you have to deal with the electronics that shut you down. Yeah, they've kind of gone a little too far. I mean, some of the electronics do make things a lot easier for farming, but it's that much more stuff to break. And companies like John Deere won't let you fix your own electronics, which really pissed a lot of farmers off because if you break down, you got to be able to fix it because time is money and you can't afford to sit there for 3 days waiting for somebody to come from the tractor dealer to plug in their proprietary software just to see what's wrong with your tractor. And they ended up getting sued for that because, a lot of car makers, a lot of things are starting to try and do that sort of thing where anything electronic, they want to license you the right to use the electronic, but you don't actually own it. And there have been have been lawsuits filed to get the right to repair things, and they finally beat John Deere at it, but it's going to really hurt them in the long run. John Deere electronics are pure junk. Go back to plants and distributors. Yeah, I mean, it used to be tractors were specifically designed so that farmers could fix them in the field, and nowadays they're doing the opposite. Let's see. This could be an ASMR video with the sound. Yeah, like I said, of course, the one I put on the air is the one that's going to give me the most trouble. So we'll get that figured out. Yeah, bale fires. Yeah, it's not uncommon. You know, back when you used to stack small square bales in the hay mow in the barn, you know, there were quite a few barn fires because of spontaneous combustion. You gotta make sure your hay is perfectly dried before you go baling it up, because otherwise it'll heat up and it can get hot enough to catch fire. Even if it is dry, it does tend to it still heats up inside the bale a bit, but if it's too moist, it'll take off and burn on you. If you aren't a drinker in the beginning, you will be in the end. I'm almost caught back up. Becky gave a $5 super sticker. Thank you very much, Becky. It's much appreciated. The million on the floors would be something I would do. Million bushings on the floor. Yeah, I've tipped it almost over a couple of times, but I haven't managed to dump them all yet. But I'm sure that is coming at some point. The cat. Yeah, she is a pretty cat. Vicious little thing, but some of the fires burn all winter. Yeah, it takes they can smolder and burn for a long time. I can tell you guys I just got the number crown thing when you super chatted, so maybe that's what it is. I think it's supposed to be to kind of encourage engagement, comments, super chats, all of that gains you so many points, and you can become the number one commenter if you want to make a race out of it. Harley Davidson got in trouble for that. Yeah, a lot of auto companies, you know, they say, well, it's all our proprietary software. There's nothing user serviceable anyway. So if you try and fix something on your own, it'll void the warranty. And you can't get parts anywhere but from them. You know, they figured they're going to try and squeeze as much money out of you as possible. But for John Deere, it's backfired. They really pissed a lot of people off. And there's a lot of farmers that'll never buy a John Deere again because of it. So even though you can now use other companies' software on their machines, you know, the damage is done. They pretty much burned a lot of farmers because, you know, when you're broke down in the field, you need it fixed now, because that's just how farming works. The weather has to be on your side and everything else. And you can't afford to sit there for 2 days waiting for a service call from the tractor dealer. And that's the other reason why I made sure to close the box on the bushings, because if I didn't knock them over, somebody else would have. No, you don't get to play with that. Gimme. There. Silly cat. But anyhow, we've been at this for almost an hour. We'll give her a couple of more minutes. Like I said, this isn't terribly thrilling to watch sometimes, but once I get the bushings in, get everything all polished up and shined up. It'll be a little more fun to watch me struggling trying to put it back together, because that's always fun. And after that, there's a couple of there's some tuning and adjusting steps. Once we get the movement actually back running good like it should, we can figure out how to mount that in the pan and hopefully get this little project finished within the next couple of years. Anyway, now you're going to play with my tweezers, huh? You just gotta. Nope. Now that you figured out how to get a hold of them, I'll take them away from you. Anyway, she's going to learn to restore clocks too. I think she might be better at destroying them than restoring them, but she's welcome to try. Anyway, I think I'll wrap her up here. We'll call it a night. Like I said, I won't be back next week, so because I got to work, and there'll be another Tuesday somewhere in the near future where I won't be able to do it. But after that, hopefully we'll be able to get back to our normal schedule and get some things done around here. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.